When I was 14 years old, I was issued a red IC by the government. That meant that I was not a citizen, and it made no sense to me because I was born here, I was bred here, I grew up, I went to school, I made friends, I fell in love, I broke up. Being a Malaysian was all I ever had in my entire life. And I found out the government said, no, you're not Malaysian. On the one hand, you really have lived here your whole life, this is all you know, but on the other hand, the government refuses to acknowledge it. It's very sad.
Lancelot was born and raised here in Malaysia, but he wasn't recognized as a Malaysian only until recently. For the first 20 over years of his life, he lived as a stateless person. There are an estimate of 12,000 people in West Malaysia alone who are in a state of limbo as they are considered stateless, with numbers in East Malaysia unknown. Hence, these people are not accounted for as part of the 32 million Malaysians. How it has become an issue in recent years spotlights the complication in Malaysia's citizenship laws.
Akan kekal menjadi sebuah negara demokrasi yang merdeka dan yang berdaulat serta berdasarkan kepada kebebasan dan keadilan dan mengekalkan keamanan di antara segala bangsa.
When Malaya gained independence in 1957, a federal constitution was enacted to take precedence over all other laws in the nation. Many Malayans were granted citizenship by virtue of the provisions within the federal constitution. The guarantee of citizenship was later extended to Sabah, Sarawak, and formerly Singapore too when Malaysia was established. There are 4 methods for an application of citizenship under the federal constitution. They are respectively through birth and descent, by registration, by naturalization, and by incorporation of new territory into the Federation. Although substantive laws on citizenship in Malaysia is enshrined under Part 3 and the second schedule of the Malaysian Federal Constitution, the procedural rules and the administrative process, however, is provided for under a subsidiary legislation, the Citizenship Rules of 1964.
The law in Malaysia for citizenship is only found in the Federal Constitution. And the Federal Constitution uses the word either parent. That means you don't need a father and mother to be Malaysian citizen in order to accord citizenship to the child. Either one of them is enough. Under Article 14 and second schedule, if you're born in Malaysia after 1963, you automatically become a citizen of Malaysia.
However, that does not always seem to be the case. In 2019, former Deputy Home Minister Datuk Muhammad Aziz Jaman informed Parliament that a total of 111,142 applications for citizenship were made between 2013 and 2018, out of which only 24,327 were approved. A total of 26,222 applications for citizenship have been rejected, 6,371 were cancelled, and 54,222 were still being processed in July 2019. These applications also included persons who were rendered stateless. But what is statelessness, and how does one end up being stateless in the first place? In international law, a stateless person is defined as a person who is not considered as a national by any state under the operation of its law. According to UNHCR, the exact number of stateless people is not known, but there is an estimate between 10 to 15 million people around the world living without citizenship, of which 1/3 are children. This is no different in Malaysia. In fact, it's not anything new. In Malaysia, many people have been rendered stateless due to various reasons. One of the major reasons being unequal rights guaranteed to men and women. However, in some cases, it's not the law that seems to be the problem, but rather the existence of procedural and legal barriers that exist when applying for citizenship. In 2019, a study on homegrown statelessness in Malaysia identified 6 categories of statelessness. Persons with long-standing residence since pre-independence and their descendants, people who lack documentation, abandoned children or foundlings and adopted children, children of mixed marriages or unregistered marriages, alternative families and children born out of wedlock, indigenous persons, and refugees or children of migrant workers. 5 out of 6 of these categories have the possibility of being recognized as a citizen because they happen to have genuine and effective link to Malaysia.
Contra to what people believe that foreigners are claiming to be stateless and all those things, that's completely untrue. It's very important to understand, like, under the operation of law, one is stateless when they cannot acquire citizenship from any of the state. When it comes to how they become stateless, that's when we have to dive into the categories of statelessness in our country and how the laws, how the policies and practices that we have can cause statelessness.
We must be human sikit dari segi penyelesaian. Anak-anak ini besar. Kalau kita nak hantar balik, ke mana negara mereka nak dihantar? Ke Filipina pun mereka tidak tahu mana kampung. Ke Indonesia pun tidak tahu mana suku Sakat mereka.
Pre-independence population who have been here prior to 1950s, either they have arrived or they were born here. They were all working in the plantation and different sectors of the rural areas. As we achieved the independence, there was a process to acquire citizenship, and there was a eligibility to acquire citizenship. But there was a gap in that process. The records of their birth, records of their children's birth, or even typos in their birth certificate where there is inconsistency of information because they didn't know how to write, and they were very dependent on the estates, the police, to actually record this information. Through our mapping process, majority of them were Indians in the West Malaysia. There were a small group of Chinese community who faced the similar issue. And we also found that in the East Malaysia, there were a population that would come under the pre-independence population who are stateless.
The development of human resources in rural areas has helped reduce the estimated number of stateless persons in Malaysia from 40,000 in 2009 to 12,368 persons as of September 2017. Having acquired citizenship and being recognized as citizens, access to basic rights like healthcare and education are guaranteed. However, for many of them who are still stateless, they are deprived from enjoying those rights.
Number one, you can't open a bank account. You have to fill up a form. Warga negara, what do you fill up? Number two, you don't get your IC at the age of 12. Number three, some children come to me as early as standard 2. They can't go automatically to standard 3. They need to pay $150 state education agency to get permit belajar. Then they move on to the next standard. Number 4, they can't get a job because an employer needs to open a bank account to transfer the salary. They can't apply for scholarship. They cannot enter university. They cannot fly. They can't transact or do business online. They cannot marry because when you register your marriage, are you a citizen or not? You don't have an IC to begin with. Even if you have an IC, it may state bukan warga negara.
There is no official estimate as to how many stateless children there are in Malaysia, but it is generally accepted that majority of them come from East Malaysia, especially Sabah, as it represents an intergenerational case of stateless persons and persons of undetermined nationality due to lack of access to birth registration or any form of valid identity proof. Though Malaysia has ratified the Conventions of the Rights of Child, it had excluded itself from recognizing Article 7, which ensures that every child has the right to acquire nationality. Without citizenship, stateless children are deprived of their right to education, as current laws only allow citizen children to attend public schools. The only option for stateless children then are either expensive school fees that most cannot afford, or alternative schools, of which are unable to provide standardized and quality education.
Many cases are lost in courts. Why? Because the government lawyers or the Attorney General Chambers will now push the burden to show you, as the applicant who's now applying for citizenship, will have to prove you have no ties in any other country. That's not the position of the law.
In most cases, when the government pushes the burden of proof to the applicant, it does so on the basis of national security. This is to allow only applicants who are deemed genuine to be granted citizenship. Though there are a number of Malaysians who have had their applications successful, they generally had to wait for a long period of time just to receive the good news. Some cases have taken more than 10 years.
First found out actually when I was 14 years old. because that was when my uncle adopted me, legally adopted me. All the papers came through. Court ordered the government to issue me registration papers, as they do with an adoption. And then we spoke to the people at the IC department, and we spoke to lawyers, and then they said that you're stateless. It felt very surreal, because I'd lived here my whole life, been born here, didn't know anywhere else, yet I was stateless. For me specifically, it was because my parents did not register their marriage. Therefore, the government assumes that you take your mother's citizenship. When your mother can't be identified, they just assume that you take, wherever she is.
When you are not legally married, the mother is a Malaysian. The chances of getting that citizenship is a little bit higher. But if the mother is a foreigner, then we go back to the federal constitution that says if the mother is a foreigner, you have to follow the citizenship of the mother. Let's give you a real life scenario. Father Malaysian, mother foreigner. How can you now say the child must follow the citizenship of the mother when the child was born, bred, lived, speaks Bahasa Melayu all along in Malaysia? It makes no practical sense whatsoever.
The law on conferring citizenship is applied differently for men and women, especially if their child had been born overseas, and this creates a gender bias. Most, if not all the time, children are adversely affected. It also makes Malaysia one of only 25 countries in the world that denies women the right to confer nationality on their children on an equal basis with men.
If you take a look at the federal constitution yourself, you can very clearly see how there's a gender bias. Because in Article 14 of the Federal Constitution, it very clearly states that if the child is born overseas, the child can secure citizenship by operation of law if the father is Malaysian, conveniently leaving out women. Why women are left out of that provision, and why then women have to rely on an application process through Article 15.2 of the Federal Constitution, which in reality is quite ridden with delays, with bureaucracy, repeated rejections without reasons, and just no guarantee of citizenship at all.
The gender bias provisions in the law prompted Family Frontiers, along with 6 Malaysian mothers, to challenge it in a suit that was recently filed at the Kuala Lumpur High Court. In a landmark decision that was made on September 9, 2021, the court held that Malaysian mothers have the right to confer citizenship to their overseas-born children on an equal basis with Malaysian men, and that the word father must therefore be read to include mothers as well. However, the government has decided to appeal against this decision.
The premise of the case is basically that Article 14 of the Federal Constitution must be read harmoniously with Article 8 of the Federal Constitution, which guarantees gender equality and fundamental liberties, which is explicitly why the High Court judge had asked the government to provide the justification for the discrimination in the citizenship provision. And he also emphasized that it cannot be illusory, which means it just cannot be drawn out of thin air. It has to be based on facts and figures on why women cannot confer citizenship on their overseas-born children by operation of law.
Though statelessness may differ on a case-to-case basis, they do somehow present similarities in being not recognized as Malaysians. It not only hurts the individual in question, but also the people around them.
I have a son who was born overseas. He is stateless. My son now is 2 years old. Kami agak risaulah sebab permohonan telah dibuat sejak tahun 2019. So it's directly affecting me and my family. We brought him back to Sabah because we lived in Sabah. When we arrived, my son, he got sick. He was admitted to the government hospital. But for him, because he's not Malaysian, he's stateless, the charge was 600 ringgit for 3 days.
With different types and categories that can cause a person to be stateless, many face great difficulty in being able to live their lives with ease. Though they may be stateless due to various reasons, the effect on all of them is more or less the same.
Many of my clients have told me that the children have been belittled, they are treated as if they are from a different planet or they're outside, but once they get that citizenship, they feel like the big member of the Malaysian club. They're so happy, they're so delighted, they just do not know what to say. They are now part of a big family of Malaysia. Life can go on. They can now open a bank account, they can fly, they can get married, they can drive a car, they can enter university, they can get scholarship, they can vote, they can do whatever they want as a Malaysian.
Though citizenship may be a guaranteed right for every Malaysian born here, it rather is an unnoticed privilege that is acquired by chance. A privilege most of us don't even realize when it comes to simple things like going to school, visiting the doctor, or even walking out of our house. That is a lived experience countless stateless persons in limbo can never fathom. And what we do next with the issue of statelessness can either help alleviate their plight or force them living on the fringes of society.